Hi there, guys. My name is Stuart Goodwin from Marshall Music, and tonight on Stu Chats With, we have possibly the tallest guitarist in South Africa.
I think that could be very true.
His name is Raymond Green, and he's a guitarist extraordinaire. I'm the tallest non-guitar player in South Africa. He's the tallest guitar player.
I'll take that, man. How's it, bro?
How's it, man?
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Finally, yes.
Let's talk guitars and stuff.
All night. Let's do it. That's what we do.
Listen, we've only got like half an hour, so
Okay.
we've got to kind of tone it down.
Yeah,
I know
half an hour to talk. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You and me, I think that's
maybe we can go a bit longer.
Okay. Cool.
Let's talk about when you first picked up a guitar. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remember that. I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
Which was a long time ago, 92, and I remember about a year before that, I just started the music that my parents would play at home. I would always be very much drawn to the guitar, and I used to take these squash rackets and mime that I was playing, and I would get lost in this world of playing in front of in a stadium in my mind with a squash racket, and just really just loving the idea of the guitar. And so when I was 12, I got my first guitar.
What was it?
It was an Epiphone, a little classical guitar.
Yeah.
And I remember asking my parents, earlier that year, I really want a guitar, and we didn't have a lot of money. And I remember my parents were like, "Well, I don't know, I don't think so. We'll see if we can afford it." But it looked like it wasn't going to happen. And my mom got retrenched around about the same time, and so with her retrenchment money, she took that and she actually bought me that Epiphone. And that's when pretty much my path was set,
Yeah, that was it.
Exactly, because my parents tried to get me into tennis and cricket.
You would have been a good tennis player, hey?
Yeah, exactly. When I think back now, I probably might have been a bit more lucrative.
You look like Novak Djokovic, eh?
Should have maybe done that or basketball or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I avoided all of that, and I just I got into skateboarding for a while, but passed through that, and then when
you're too tall for skateboarding.
When the guitar thing happened, that was just that was it, and I got lost in that whole world, and went to guitar lessons quite soon after that, so with a guy called Mike Cooper. That I'd love to actually be able to get a hold of somehow. I think he moved to Cape Town, and but I just remember it was in this.
Mike, if you're watching, get hold of Ray. He's looking for you.
I've tried to stalk him on Facebook, but I don't think I found the right Mike Cooper. But and I just remember having lessons in this little Wendy house, and it was so exciting, and all this gear and the smell. I remember the smell of an acoustic guitar. In fact, even today, it's the weirdest thing. I don't know if you understand, but when you smell the inside of that guitar, it just brings back so much memories of that time, Anyway, pretty weird, but I really love that. And anyway, and then pretty much throughout school, played guitar. Got into my first band was in a church band. I was in this little home cell, because I've pretty much grown up in church, and I was in this little home cell group and playing guitar there on my Epiphone. And the youth pastor came the one night, and he checked it out, and he said, "Hey man, you should come and play in the youth." And I was like, "Wow, that'll be amazing." And that's kind of how I got into the church thing, and that was a lot of my experience playing in bands was that, worship teams and that kind of thing, which I really think helped me so much. And that was it, going through school and getting an electric guitar eventually. And
what was your first electric?
It was an Eddie Van. Well, it was a Kramer, but it was like an Eddie Van Halen Kramer. So it had the Floyd Rose, had just a humbucker in the back, one volume knob, and I loved that guitar. And there's actually a cool story with that as well. Is the guitar teacher that I was going to at that stage was a guy called Kevin Drummond. Also, really made a big impact. In my playing, and he said, "Right, you need to get an electric guitar now, and let's go to Tom's, and they're having a sale there." And I always heard about this music shop, Tom's, in Braamfontein. And so I went with him, and there was this Kramer sitting there, and he said, "Listen, man, this guitar, it's got a Floyd." And in those days, it was great, And so he convinced me to put down a 100 Rand deposit. and I think the guitar was like $2,000, and went back home and said to my parents, listen,
That's a lot of money.
put down this deposit on this guitar. And they were like, what, are you crazy? You know, and they freaked out, and the next day I said, no, drove me back to Tom's, and so I'm standing there, quite sheepish, and then my parents look at each other and go, you know what, it's fine, let's just get him the guitar, what else do you need, so that they bought me, I remember I got a little Zoom 9000.
Yeah.
And I didn't have an amp, but I'd plug that into like a hi-fi or whatever and get this like scoop distortion sound, and thought that was the most incredible thing, and dive bombed and and then that was my whole addiction to electric guitar and and tone and that world, So.
And then did you have any formal music education after school?
Yes, I did. After matric, I studied for 2 years at LMB. It was the first year that this music school was kind of put together, and the idea of it was fantastic. It was kind of like a South African MIT, And my dream was always to be able to go to Musicians Institute, and go to a place like that. And it was just completely just out of my reach because of finances and stuff like that. But anyway, so I studied there, and the lecturers were fantastic, and that really helped me so much, because I could play at a certain level, I would say, but my theory was, I knew nothing. And throughout all my lessons that I went over the years, whenever it came to theory, I was just like, modes, okay, you know how it is, you learn, but you don't sort of take the stuff in.
It doesn't soak in, yeah.
And really, that's those 2 years specifically with my understanding of music and chords and compositions and how voicings and things like that, and just music. I really learned a lot, and that helped me so much to read music. And the guitar teacher that I had was just so fantastic, a guy called Andy Suchi, German.
He's
cat.
amazing,
And unfortunately passed away a couple of years, but he really made a massive impression because on me, just watching him play. He was a good teacher, but he would just play stuff and say, all right, you got to do it next week, But it was just watching his vibrato and his clean playing and his tone and just the vibe and the mojo that he had, that just really it was just beautiful, So it was those 2 years. And really, that's kind of when I started to think, okay, maybe this could be a career for me. I don't know, I have no idea. And so started teaching a little bit. And through like in those 2 years at church, at Rhema at that stage, there was an incredible music ministry and team there, with some of the best players in the country playing in the band there, and it was just really like it was such a musical educational place to be in as well. And there were some producers also in the team there that would on some of the stuff say, hey man, on a Saturday, do you want to come record? And I got a little bit of experience doing some sessions, and starting to go, wow, this is something I really, really, really want to do, And then it pretty much started snowballing from then, But in terms of the education thing, 2 years at LMB, and then I was out in the big world of music.
And I mean, you never had was that it? You just got straight into music?
That was it, and that was it. I mean, I never ever had a real job.
You've never had a real job?
I did things very, very different from what most people do. I mean, I got married very young, at 20. My wife and I met when I was 16, and
well, you've got like 8,000 kids, so you've needed all that time to produce all those children.
That's right, exactly, yeah. And so we did things very early, and literally got out of college and got married. It was insane, and then I was in the music thing, and that's really what I wanted to do, and I wanted to take a shot at it, and it's almost been 20 years,
well
and
done.
So it's
brilliant,
and still trying to hustle,
And what was one of your first big kind of sessions that really stood out for you in the early days then?
Okay, so I got a bit of experience working with a guy called can you believe it? Trevor Sampson. Sorry, I just went blank there. Trevor Sampson was a producer and was connected to Rhema, and I knew him from those circles, and so he would often get me doing sessions, and so he would get me to play on some gospel stuff, and so that's when I was doing proper paid sessions, and I learned a lot that way. But I would say my first, I feel like real secular kind of like proper session was with the Idols thing back in the day, with in the Heinz Winkler year. So the first time Idols came to South Africa, I remember he won, and they had to do the single for the win for him. He's winning single, and I knew a guy called Crichton Goodwill very well. We were good mates, and he was on this job with Brian O'Shea, and they phoned me up and said, "Listen, Ray," it was on a Sunday, I remember, they said, "Listen, can you come into the studio today?" And I was just like, oh, my word, this is so, because we want you to play on this Idol single. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I really want to do this. And I was so nervous, and I had my rig, you know, that the Deervolt and I were talking about. I had my Marshall, my 2x12 cab, and my JMP1 and my power amp and my whole thing, because I'd read articles on what a session guy needs and all that kind of stuff, you know. And and I took that with me, and I went there that day, and I felt so sick to my stomach with nerves, you know. And I just remember it being a very Westlife kind of track. It was that was kind of the very in sound then, you know, for singles, you know. And and so there was acoustic guitar and electric guitar stuff, and it just went so well. And then from then I kind of was you know, did a lot of those type of things, you know. And then but that was a real breakthrough, I think, session for me, because it just really got me, I think, into the right circles.
And you've kind of been involved with Idols ever since, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, weirdly enough, not really related, because that was my first experience with Idols was those many years ago. And then every year since then, you know, Crichton would do the albums, and so he would always book me on the guitars, and so that would just become the norm. So throughout most of that duration of Idols, I would play on the stuff, but I was never in the band. The live band, and then at some stage the band changed over, and I got my foot in the door to get in the band there, and then I've been in there since, which has really been awesome. It's a really fun gig to do, and it's quite a lot of pressure in certain ways, but you learn to sort of get over the thing of, wow, it's on live TV, and you get out of that and kind of just get into the music.
Yeah.
And but it's really great. It's a great band to work with, and
hot
musos, and just good arrangements, and you know, Gavin and Annika, who are the directors, they just do it's just a great working environment, and so it's really awesome, I must say. It's
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So and that's kind of how it all started, you know.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about your gear.
Okay.
What's your kind of go-to equipment at the moment?
All right, so I think.
And what do you use for what?
Okay, so I've got in terms of guitars, my main guitar is a Strat, good old American standard Strats that I've done lots of stuff to.
Have you changed the pickups more than once?
I've only done it once, actually.
Okay, that's not bad.
And back in the day, whenever I'd get a Strat, the first thing that I would do is I'd put a new set of pickups in, and I'd do that whole thing. But then I must say, I love the sound of the actual original pickups in there. And then the ones I changed them for were the Sir Michael Landau single coils, and they're fantastic. And so I just put them in there, but I wouldn't say they're actually better than the ones that were in there. But anyway, so I've got that, and I actually have a humbucker in the back of my guitar that I bought from you guys. It's a Gibson Burst Bucker that I had to route out and mess up a lot of what's underneath my scratch plate. But I fitted it there, and it sounds fantastic. And it's so 2 single coils and a humbucker, and pretty much that's it. You know? So that guitar, and I've got a couple of other guitars that I'll use a lot in studio, but the one I'll take with me all the time is that Strat. And in terms of amps, I've played a lot of amps over the years, but I've stuck with Fender DeVilles for a very long time for many reasons. But I think they're very convenient, and they're the amp that's going to be the hired amp if you're on a gig. It's there, so you can get used to it. Whereas back in the day when I had my rig, I could never get that sound if I'd had a gig in Cape Town or flew somewhere. It was a nightmare, and it was just, you know, running cables and trying to get into the amps effects loop because I wanted to use the amps distortion. And so eventually I just went DeVilles, and I learned I found what worked for me, and our sweet spot on those amps. And then
makes sense.
And then just my pedal board, which is very, very simple. Actually, I brought it, but it's fine. It's literally just a compressor that I have on pretty much most of the time. So a nice loud clean, and then a loud very little compression, pushed loud to push the amp, and then a first gain overdrive, which is just an MR Blues Pro.
Lovely.
Which is a very mid-rangey pedal, and it works really nice on like single coil stuff like my Tele or Strat single coil
kind of
pickup.
tube screamery.
Yeah, that kind of vibe. But yeah. And then my next pedal is a good old Boss Blues Driver, which I've just had for many years and just love that pedal. And I find it very versatile. And also, you know, when you roll your volume down, it cleans up really nicely, which is so lacquer. So you can get those breakup sounds are very clean, and then come up and you've got a good overdrive sound. So I love that pedal. And then and I stack the MR with that a lot of the time as well. So sometimes I'll have the Boss on like a healthy distortion, but not over the top. And sometimes if I just want to do like a solo or something, then I'll stack it with the MR, and it sounds great. Okay. And then for distorted lead or good old distortion stuff, my MR Crunchbox, the red one, old one actually. And then volume pedal, normal thing, and then delay pedal and a reverb pedal. I've got a Strymon
Timeline.
Strymon Timeline. The only reason that I got that is because my Eventide died. I had a Time Factor, which I loved. I loved how it worked. I loved the sound of it, and then it died. So I had to get another one, and the Timeline is great. But that I have that, and then my reverb is a Blue Sky.
Okay,
Strymon. Yeah,
nice.
And that's a lovely pedal. That one's so tempting to just have that on all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, I'll live in that ambient land, and I love that, you know. But yeah, and that's pretty much it. And it's all on like a little like a pedal train to.
And that you travel with us everywhere.
Yeah, and I take that to my fly out gigs and stuff, and I'll take it to my sessions, and then I'll usually just take a whole bunch of other separate stomp boxes with me to my sessions, and then I'll just can quickly patch in and stuff like that, you know.
Now, weren't you using a Helix recently?
Yes, yeah. So
tell us about your Helix experience.
Yeah, so I think I mean the Helix. Well, okay, so we'll get on to why we're really going to talk about the Helix now, but. I think it's the best Line 6 has ever put out. It is, I found it phenomenal, and I've tried. I think everything I've tried, the Kemper, and I don't even want to get into the whole what's better Kemper and Helix thing, because it's a personal thing. And what I loved about the Helix was just it's on the floor. I've got my controls there, and it sounded phenomenal. And that was my first experience with impulse responses and doing that whole thing, and I really found that helped me on so many sessions that I would do. So I did eventually sell the Helix though, and the reason being sometimes you just get bored of a sound, and I found a lot of the times I was trying to get the like a bit of a darker sound. Like I found when I mic'd up a guitar, that even though it was bright, it kind of had like a bit of a darker sound to it, whereas the Helix was just always bright, and it had this very, very like presency sound, which is great on so many things. And I'm sure there's ways that you can cut that out, and I came right many times, but I just eventually on some sessions started using my amp again and started just really loving it, and decided, you know what, it's one option as well. That's the amp I've got there. That's the sound I'm marking up. I don't have a lot of options here, so I've got to deal with that sound. And I just find it refreshing, because now there's less to think about. Whereas on something like the Helix or the Kemper, there's just so much stuff that you can do. Where
I think that reminds me of a big point. Is a lot of stuff that I see on the forums is the guys are buying these Helixes and Kempers, and they're spending the whole night finding a sound, and it's midnight, and they've played maybe for like 5 minutes,
Yeah.
Whereas, with an amp, just plug in, there's a nice sound, and play. And then when you have to get different tones, and you kind of get it. I mean, it sounds so old school, but it's true. You got to get to actually know your guitar. So you want a brighter sound, you got to try a brighter pickup, or or you've got to. And it's amazing what you can actually do with simple stuff like that. But I still take my pedal board with me, because that gives me a lot of creativity. I don't record ever really with reverbs or delays or anything like that. Most producers don't want to do that, which is cool. But I have it there with me. So if I'm coming up with an idea, then I'll have it on, and I'll get a mood going, and then we go, oh cool, that'll work for this over here. All right, and then we track it another way or whatever. But I just really love that. I love the sound of my amps, and I'm back into that thing now, and I'm just enjoying it. And there's a lot of pros to having things like the Helix, without a doubt. But what I am doing now is I'm trying that Sir reactive load IR. Yep.
And So I'm giving that a shot and seeing how that works. So I can run my normal amp and stuff like that direct, and it's cool.
Also, there's that new Boss tube expander coming out. Have you heard about that? I'll tell you about it.
Okay. All right.
You might like it.
Okay, nice.
It's an all-in-one solution to be able to play your lovely loud amps loud at home.
Okay.
It's got all sorts of things on it. I'll tell you.
Oh wow! Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
That's so lucky. I mean, I think anything that I mean, these days it is difficult to mic up an amp in a little home studio. In my little studio at home, I can't do that. So I need to be able to go direct. But I've also started experimenting with Guitar Rig and using IRs that way, and not using the cabs in Guitar Rig. And massive difference as well, and just it's cool. So I think these days everything is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit less about gear and more about what are your secrets to good tone in terms of playing an instrument and interacting with it. What are some tips and tricks that for guys to get really good tone out of an instrument?
I think the place to not get lost in is necessarily having the best gear. It is good to have good gear, obviously, but you know, having a good guitar and a good amp is 80% of the gear that you really need. You know, and it also sounds so cliched, but it's the way you play, and the tone is in your fingers, and I think that's not really helpful to anyone trying to get good tone. But I think the whole idea is to get to know your guitar. You know, spend time practicing, playing confidently, vibrato, playing your instrument well, and getting to know your instrument. So when you roll your tone down, when you roll your volume down, know how to get stuff out of your guitar. And I think a lot of that sort of bedrock tone is that. You know, I've tried so much stuff over the years, and nothing really is I think the best thing. Everything, an amp, a Helix, whatever, that stuff always has its place. But you know, what I generally try to do is just try and get a nice fat clean sound, and then, you know, hit the amp hard with a overdrive pedal, not a lot of gain, rather louder pedal, less gain.
Good, yes, agreed.
And just keeping it very, very simple. You know, I don't do things like the little those multi looper things. Yeah. I've tried that, and it is amazing.
Do you think it sucks tone?
No, not at all. I just think it's so complicated. I'm sure I've tried them before, and it's great, but there's just too many cables, and there's just too much stuff. And
too much stuff to go wrong.
Yeah.
If one connector goes wrong.
Yeah, and so many times when I'm playing, I want to be able to just go, you know what, I want to try that, or I want to try that, or you know, and I feel like I'm too set into something programmed like that. But back to the tone question, it's really just the simple stuff of sitting down, practicing. You know, what are you listening to as well? You know, if you're listening to a lot of, let's say, Stevie Ray Vaughan or blues guitarists or whatever, your tone is naturally going to kind of go that way. You know, if you internalize that stuff. So listen to good stuff. You know, if you want to be a great country guitarist, listen to great country guitarists, and you know, study what they do and how they get that. And you'll find as well, most of these guys, yes, they've got rigs and all this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, if they plug into an amp, all of the tone comes from these. You know,
100%. Not relying on toys and tricks, and
that's it.
They put in the hard work.
Absolutely, and it's you don't have to. You know, there's some amazing players that don't have chops. They play the most simple stuff. You know, there's a solo that Vince Gill does with Carrie Underwood. How Great Thou Art, I think is the song. It's at the CMA Awards. You can check it out on YouTube. But not that I'm saying he doesn't have chops, but when you see him play the solo, it is just so simple, but it's so magic, clean, strat into an amp, maybe a compressor, whatever, but just everything's And when you watch that, then you go, that is really where it is. It's these.
That's a guy who's who's put hundreds of hours into just his craft.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
What are you up to at the moment, gig-wise, session-wise?
Yeah,
what's happening?
Yeah, pretty much most of the stuff that I do is studio sessions. I do live stuff, and I do gigs and that kind of stuff.
Is Idols starting again soon?
Yeah, Idols is coming up in end of August.
Okay.
We've already shot the Theatre Week stuff, but I think they're going to start showing that on TV now soon. And then the live show starts end of August, and that's 3 months of live shows, which is always a lot of fun, and it's a lot of work, but yeah, it's great. So yeah, but sessions, we were talking earlier, I'm doing a lot more sessions from home these days, because now I actually have a place to record nicely.
Very cool.
Thanks to my friend Rogan Kelsey, who helped me to get my single garage that literally you could hear the Hardy-Dars flying over. You couldn't do anything in there. And now it's just fantastic. Doesn't matter what noise is going outside. It's quiet, and it checks nicely. So I've got my little man cave studio at home that I'm doing a lot of work from.
Now you never have to see your family.
Well, this is the problem, because they're shame, they're really complaining, because I could literally get lost in there. It's lovely.
Are the kids allowed down there?
No, they're in there all the time.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's very nice of you.
Well, yeah, my kids are musical. My son plays guitar, is really into it. He's always saying, Dad.
Have you found him a good teacher?
No, I've taught him, but I'm shocking. But he's actually doing really, really well. He's coming along nicely, and then my youngest son
Is he going to be better than you?
Sure, I hope so. Yeah, I'm sure. I think at the stage he is at now, I wasn't playing the way he is. So let's hope. But I think he's also very clever, so I think he should go into accounting or doctor or something like that. And
you wish, yeah.
Because he's our retirement plan.
Are you on social media?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Give us some of your social media links.
Yeah, so Instagram, Geet Ray. I changed it. It's actually Mr. Ray Green.
Mr. Ray Green on Instagram.
On Instagram.
Okay, Mr. Ray Green on Instagram. We'll put the links below.
That's it. And then on Facebook, Raymond Green.
Okay. People can. You're allowed
Pretty
to befriend
easy.
him.
There's a lot of Raymond Greens, though.
Are there?
There are surprisingly a lot of Raymond Greens. Yeah.
Just look for the long one.
Yes,
he's the longest.
Yeah, you'll see. You'll see my profile there.
We're out of time. Thank you so much for giving up your time. Always great to chat to you. Always great to see you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Cool, guys. That's all for now. Thank you and goodbye.